James stepped into his apartment, and silence hit him like a heavy blanket. Just months ago, this place was alive with her presence, her laughter, her footsteps, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Now, the rooms felt empty, despite the familiar furniture and scattered belongings. He tossed his keys onto the side table without looking, and walked into the living room, where streetlight shadows stretched long across the walls. His movements were automatic, as if routine could fill the void. The breakup had happened 3 months earlier, but time hadn't erased her from his world. James avoided thinking about her directly, yet her image surfaced in small things. Her favorite coffee mug, the playlist they'd made together, random phone notifications he checked with a flicker of hope. He told himself it was over, that he was fine, but his body and mind were at odds. His fingers instinctively opened her social media profile, only for him to close it in frustration. He didn't text, call, or seek her out, but every evening, slouched on the couch, he replayed their final conversations, searching for where it all went wrong. His friends noticed changes. James grew quieter, deflected with jokes, but his eyes betrayed a weariness he hid behind a forced smile. He didn't mention her, but her name slipped out when someone brought up shared memories. He'd quickly change the subject, as if afraid the truth might spill. Pride kept him from admitting her absence felt like a physical ache. James filled his days with work, workouts, and hangouts, but returning home always brought the shadow of the past crashing back. He didn't cry or complain, but alone, his gaze lingered on the empty spot beside him where she once sat. His silence, louder than any words. James carried on, as if following an unseen script where every step was a bid to prove he was free from the past. But his actions betrayed an inner turmoil he worked hard to conceal. He started posting more on social media, photos from parties where his smile looked bright, but his eyes stayed hollow. Each post felt like a message to an unseen recipient, though he'd never admit he hoped for her reaction. He scrolled through her stories, lingering on every frame, but never hit like, afraid to reveal his attention. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to type a message, but pride made him close the chat. In public, James seemed his old self, joking, engaging, but his gaze often drifted, as if searching the crowd for someone. At the cafe where they used to spend evenings, he picked a corner table far from their usual spot, yet found himself watching the door, half expecting her to walk in. His avoidance was almost ritualistic. He steered clear of streets they'd walked together, but couldn't stop checking her profile late at night when silence grew unbearable. Sometimes he mentioned her to friends, casually, as if by accident, only to cut himself off when he caught their looks. His silence spoke louder than words. Every gesture, every evasive move carried a longing he didn't know how to voice. James spent more time alone, sitting on his balcony with a mug of cold coffee, staring at a city that felt alien without her. He didn't reach out, but his energy, his gaze, his slowed movements screamed that she still occupied his thoughts. This was his silent scream, inaudible to others, deafening within, where he wrestled with the urge to go back and the fear of feeling that pain again. James decided it was time to show the world he was moving on. His life seemed to pick up a new rhythm, brimming with activity and forced joy. But beneath it lay a fragile attempt to fool himself. Mornings began with gym sessions, where mirrors reflected his tense face, not the confidence he wanted to project. He revamped his wardrobe, picking bold shirts and sharp jeans, as if clothes could rewrite his inner world. His social media turned into a gallery of staged moments, laughing with friends at a bar, posing against a sunset, sharing quotes about everything happening for a reason. Each post was calculated, filtered to project carefree vibes, but deep down, he knew who these images were for. James avoided mentioning her directly, but chose songs for his stories that played during their shared nights or posted phrases that might sting if she saw them. He didn't contact her, but every click on her profile was a hunt for signs she noticed his efforts. Friends saw James planning more outings, as if the quiet of solitude scared him more than he'd admit. At parties, he was the life of the crowd, laughing loudly, spinning tales. But when the music faded, his gaze turned distant, scanning for a familiar face. He sought out new places untouched by their memories, yet his thoughts always circled back to her. James tried to convince himself these were steps to a new life, but every post, every photo smile was a cry that he wasn't free. His energy pulsed with contradiction. He wanted her to see him thriving, yet feared she'd believe the lie. At night, back home, the mask fell. He sat in the dark, scrolling through her old texts he couldn't delete, feeling longing tighten his chest. His efforts to seem better than ever weren't for others. They were for her, to prove he was okay, even as he craved her approval, her gaze, her presence in his world. James lived in constant inner turmoil, each action a mirror of his struggle between letting go and being unable to. His behavior grew erratic, as if he teetered between a world where she still filled his thoughts and one where he tried to claim independence. He could go hours without checking her social media, but in weak moments, usually late at night, his fingers found her name. Once, he blocked her on a messaging app, thinking it would give him control, only to unblock her 2 days later in a surge of unexplained yearning, hoping she'd notice. He didn't write or call, but his actions carried a hidden weight he barely understood. James grew sharper with friends when her name came up or when they hinted at his state. He brushed it off, switched topics, but his clenched fists and averted eyes gave him away. Spotting her by chance at a mall, he turned away, pretending not to see, though his heart pounded like it might break free. He avoided her, yet couldn't stop wondering how she looked in that moment. Was she happy? Did she see him? Did she think of their past? His social media became a battleground. He posted stories with feigned ease, then deleted them, scared they screamed his pain too loudly. He might reply to her old story with a sarcastic emoji, only to regret it an hour later, cursing his lapse. His emotions spilled out unpredictably. He'd vanish from contact for days, ignoring everyone, then reappear with forced energy, as if nothing happened. This inconsistency was his way of grappling with the chaos inside, where his mind demanded he forget, but his heart clung to every detail tied to her. James felt trapped, unsure how to break free. His avoidance, his sharp reactions, his sudden returns to her digital world weren't mere whims. They were a fight to control feelings he could neither embrace nor reject. Every step was a search for balance, but instead he sank deeper into an unresolved longing that shadowed him everywhere. James sank deeper into a maze of unresolved emotions where every move toward freedom pulled him further into memories. His life, outwardly busy, was laced with an emptiness he couldn't fill. He kept up the pretense of progress, visiting new cafes, trying new hobbies, even going on a few dates set up by friends. But whenever he was with another woman, his mind drifted to her. Her laugh, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, her habit of staring thoughtfully out windows, those details haunted him, turning every new encounter into a pale comparison. He smiled, kept up conversation, but his heart stayed elsewhere, tethered to a past he couldn't shake. James noticed his responses to new people were rote, lacking the spark he once felt with her. After these outings, he'd return home, sink onto the couch, and feel the void grow, like a black hole swallowing his attempts at rebuilding. His phone buzzed with unread messages from new contacts, but he couldn't muster the energy to reply. None stirred what she had. James spent more evenings alone, gazing at city lights through his apartment window. He scrolled her profile, despite vowing not to. Her new photos, her smile, her life without him stirred a mix of pain and relief. She seemed happy, which both hurt and oddly comforted him. He didn't like her posts or message her, but each new image burned into his memory, proof she was moving on while he was stuck. His efforts to distract himself failed. He tried reading books she disliked, listening to music they never shared, but it only highlighted her absence. James grew almost obsessive about avoiding mutual friends, dreading news of her life or who she was with. Yet he found himself eavesdropping on stray conversations, hoping to catch her name. His behavior turned desperate. He'd post a philosophical quote about freedom, then delete it an hour later, realizing it was just a plea to convince himself of something false. He tried dating others, but personal conversations sent his thoughts spiraling back to her. He compared everything: how a new acquaintance held her cup, laughed, looked at him. No one could fill the space she'd left. Friends noticed James growing irritable, his jokes tinged with bitterness, his once vibrant energy now strained. He didn't speak of her, but his silence said it all. Alone at night, he replayed their final moments, searching for where he went wrong, what he could have done differently. His desperate bids to move on only proved he was still bound to her, to the echo of her presence ringing through every corner of his life. James felt his heart, like an old house, was full of her traces, and he didn't know how to clear it for something new. This inner struggle, this inability to forget, made every day heavy, every night endless, as he faced her ghost alone. James reached a point where his battle with himself felt almost tangible, like an invisible wall encasing his life. He kept up his usual routine, but each day played like a looped scene where he acted the part of someone moving forward. His apartment, once a haven, had become a museum of memories. Every item, from the worn blanket on the couch to the dog-eared book on the shelf, tied to her. James tried to dodge these reminders, but they were everywhere. In the scent of coffee she loved, a song that popped up in his headphones, his own reflection that felt foreign without her gaze. He stopped posting vibrant photos on social media, realizing the happy facade no longer fooled even him. Instead, he shared rare, almost accidental shots. City lights at night, an empty road, a blurred sky, as if trying to capture the hollowness inside. His profile, once bursting with forced cheer, now mirrored the quiet that had settled in his soul. James checked her page less often, not because he thought of her less, but because each new post cut like a blade, reminding him she lived a life he was no longer part of. He didn't write, call, or seek her out, but his silence wasn't forgetting. It was an admission she still held his heart. His friends, tired of his vague replies, stopped asking how he was coping, though their knowing glances showed they understood. James shunned loud gatherings, favoring solitary walks through the city. He roamed streets they once strolled together, not chasing her shadow anymore, but letting memories wash over him like waves he no longer fought. His behavior grew less erratic, not from healing but from exhaustion with the fight. He no longer blocked her on apps or removed her from contacts, yet made no move to reach out. His actions, or lack thereof, were a stark confession. He couldn't let her go, nor did he know how to bring her back. At night, he sat on his balcony, staring at stars as distant as she felt. His thoughts tangled, caught between wanting to forget and fearing he might. He tried meeting others, but each attempt ended the same. He'd look at a new face and see only a faint echo of the one he'd lost. His heart, like a locked castle, stayed shut, its key still in her hands. James noticed his longing had quieted, not gone, but softer, yet no less heavy. He stopped raging at his weakness or trying to prove he was fine. Instead, he began to accept his pain as part of him, a shadow that would always trail him. His silence became more than a shield. It was how he voiced what he couldn't say aloud. He didn't search for her in crowds, but passing their old cafe, he'd slow his pace, as if a chance encounter might change everything. His life went on, but it carried a void he didn't try to fill. James realized his silence wasn't weakness, but a testament to the depth of his feelings. He didn't cry, shout, or send her long texts, but every stare into the distance, every missed call, every night alone was his heart's cry, still beating to the rhythm of their past. He didn't know how to move forward, yet couldn't stop, trapped in a strange limbo where she was both everywhere and nowhere. His silence became his loudest confession, not of love or regret, but of the mark she'd left on him, one he couldn't, and didn't want to, erase.